Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking Season 2 of Z Nation. Now that wrapped up the other week, but with work and the holidays and all, I haven't really had time until now to sit down and make a video that was a follow-up to my Season 1 review. So let's just kind of talk about this season of the show. Now I'm going to start this off keeping things really general, and then I want to move in and talk about some more specifics that's going to involve some spoilers. So I'll give you a warning before I get into anything too heavy for this season in terms of spoilers. And I gotta say, this is an example. Z Nation here was a really good example of a show that definitely got a lot stronger in season two. We learned a lot more about the characters. Asylum proved that once again they're not afraid to kill off main characters on this show, and I don't consider that a spoiler because if you've been watching the show enough to get to season two, yeah, they're not above doing that, and that's what I like. I like that that nobody is safe, which is how it should be in a zombie apocalypse show. And just kind of going on into that thing, one of the really cool things about Z Nation is that despite all the comparisons people have made between it and The Walking Dead, which is pretty much inevitable, what's nice about Z Nation is that it takes place in a world where zombies and zombie apocalypse fiction was established before the zombie apocalypse actually happened. And that means that the characters there are sort of able to make some sort of interesting observations about this from time to time. Now, The Walking Dead, however, as the creators have said, takes place in a world where where zombie fiction doesn't exist. That's why nobody ever seems to say the word zombie or really kind of understand, hey, you gotta kill the thing's brain to take one down. So it's that self-awareness, oddly reminiscent of the Scream movies from the '90s in a lot of ways. Um, that really kind of adds a lot to the flavor and character of Z Nation. And of course, it's a show that doesn't really take itself terribly seriously and isn't afraid to go out there and have lots of crazy ideas and just sort of go nuts. But it roots that with doing genuinely good and interesting stuff with the characters. My favorite episode, in fact, this season was where the flashback episode where we got to see what all these characters were doing on the first day of the zombie apocalypse, what their life was like before things really went to hell. And just kind of going on with the season in general, the big bads this time around are, of course, the Zeros, and I can't do that thing with R's and the people who speak Spanish can do, so you're just going to have to live with me calling them Zeros rather than Zeros. I sound ridiculous if I try and say that. And that also gives the chance for Gina Gershon to come in as Lorena, the leader of the Zeros. And man, it was fun to really just sort of watch Gina Gershon, who was obviously having a blast being able to play a character who's just as crazy as crazy as they come. But yeah, this show this season did more. I mean, basically, it's more of the same. Lots of fun, interesting stuff going on in a zombie apocalypse world. Some nice character moments, and some interesting plot twists. Um, Along with some genuine character moments. And that's really, I think, all you can ask for. Z Nation is a show that knows it's kind of a silly show. It knows it's not afraid to go out there and be over the top, but it does genuinely want to sort of make you care about the characters and honestly tell a good story. I mean, a lot of really interesting stuff does happen this season. And I have to say, I was really surprised by how much stronger this show was this season compared to season 2. Now, we learned a while back that the show has indeed been renewed for season 3. So, yeah, this is turning out to be quite the little epic we're going on with these characters. And it's really fun that way. So, with that said, I think it's a good place to kind of call it in terms of being generally non spoilery and kind of get right into things that are a little bit more detailed. So, if you don't want anything in terms of serious spoilers, now's the time to step away in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Spoiler time. Okay, so in general, I would have to say that Murphy is really the centerpiece of this season. Last season he was just sort of really reluctant to show any sort of real affection for the group. Here, he's kind of he's definitely a smartass plenty of time and does a lot of grumbling and stuff, but he's obviously come to value the other members of the group. Now, what's interesting about Murphy is that now these sort of changed in this sort of the creators of the show have come up with the term blends. People who are somewhere between human and zombie. Murphy is this. Lucy is this. The people bitten by Murphy are considered this too. And that was really fascinating. It's like, well, what happens if Murphy bites someone now? And we got to see that he basically can kind of make them his slave. That's what happened with Cassandra. And that really led to some interesting stuff. It culminated in Cassandra attacking 10K and him having to put her down. And considering that there had been some sparks there between those two, that was a tough one. I can't remember who it was that mentioned last season that if they could find a way to breed 10K and Cassandra, they'd be able to basically bring the zombie apocalypse to an end in no time. And 10K really did take being put into that position very personally. And I like that bit where he basically says, like, as soon as we get Murphy to California and get this whole cure situation sorted out, I'm going to kill him. And that puts an interesting spin on the things of the group. 10K has to protect Murphy, but is simultaneously vowed to kill him. And I make no bones about it. 10K is my favorite character on the show. So what they're doing with him, that seems really, really interesting. It puts him in a really tough situation where he's constantly having to fight what he wants to do and what he has to do. And 10K continues the quest to try and get laid with minimal success. I kept watching the show. It's like, geez, Addie, just take the kid's V card already. But I suppose that might not be for the best at the end of the day. But going back to Murphy, now he's in a really interesting situation where he's kind of bonded with the group, but now he's also really kind of bonded with the zombies. He has this connection to them. And he's even come to to care about the zombies in his own way. Like the episode where they start driving all those thousands of zombies into the Grand Canyon, Murphy freaks the hell out and starts screaming like they can feel. And you have to wonder, well, is Murphy right? Is this just some sort of weird side effect of his connection to them? Or what's going on here? And Warren really put it well. It's like, there's going to come the day when you're going to have to choose whether or not you're a human or you're a zombie. And for the moment, well, after the end of at the season cliffhanger, it's kind of hard to tell what's going on with Murphy. It's scary to think that he really might choose the zombies. I mean, if he does, what happens there? Now, I don't think that's going to be the situation, because as we saw in the season finale, off back in the middle of the Midwest, we've got Lucy. So that would be kind of interesting if that was what was to happen, is that she were to sort of have power abilities like Murphy, or perhaps even stronger, but have her decide, I think zombies should rule the world, and the people who are like me, the sort of mixes, we should be ruling the world, not the humans. And that would put Murphy in a really amazing place. It's like, do I join with my daughter, or do I fight against her? Now again, that's just some speculation on my part, but ooh, interesting stuff. And of course, Murphy, being Murphy, he had some really hilarious bits. Particularly the bit with the zombie strippers. That was hilarious. But we also got to see some other stuff, like what happens if Murphy is put in a situation where he frickin' eats a brain. I mean, yikes. So yeah, it's really kind of interesting. Going to be a heck of a thing to see what happens with Murphy in season 3, especially now that he's taken control of these military people, and We've also been introduced to what's probably going to be the big bad of the next season, these Zona guys. So, you know, hard to tell exactly what to make of that just yet, but it certainly does sound interesting. Um, Nothing really particularly huge to say about Warren this season. She had, her usual badass cool moments. Um, was very glad to see Addie leave the at the beginning of the season, leave the compound of what I like to call the Tumblr feminists. And it was pretty hilarious that she mentioned, like, yeah, that kid that they sent out at the end of season 3 to die, he figured out what was going on, came back, and turned loose the zombie bear. So, yeah, nice way to wrap that one up. Um, Let me see here. I was actually pretty glad to see Mac get the chop. As a character, he really had very little personality outside of Addie's love interest, and he's like everything about him is related to Addie in some way. He really didn't stand on his own as a character. I mean, he did get the one episode in season 3 that was kind of focused on him. I think it was Die Zombie Die, but that was sort of that all turned out to be a dream. So I mean, I dozed off during that one, watched the next episode, and didn't even notice anything of important had happened. The only real moment there that was really kind of cool was Addie being the force to give him mercy, which is kind of one of the things they have backed off on in this season 1. I kind of like that they would say that as sort of a little ritual. But then again, when you're gunning down zombies left and right, you don't have a whole lot of time for ritual. So that leads us to be introduced to Vasquez, who I have to say is a pretty reasonably good character. Um, and he has some sparks are flying, but there's some tension between him and Warren. Obviously, they're sort of very similar people in a lot of ways, and probably more than a little attracted to each other. But again, they're so similar they kind of repel each other. Garnett was sort of a little bit more of a low-key person, sort of willing to be a little less about, who's king of the hill here than Vasquez is. And that's why I think he and Warren got along well. Now, Vasquez having that vendetta against Escorpion. I'm going to try with him. And it was a little cliche, but, not bad. And I definitely love that scene in Day 1 where his wife and daughter's corpses bust out of the coffins at the funeral home, and he just freaks out and has to put them down. I mean, he's like, now we know he previously said that what had happened, but I had thought that they rose up after being killed by the Zeros, by a Scorpion. Realizing this happened later at the while he was getting ready for, I guess, the burial or the funeral or whatever. I guess they were within the I guess the zombie virus was able to work on corpses so long as they were, reasonably fresh, I suppose. But yeah, that scene was awesome. And then we kind of get to the season finale where it's like, after having left a Scorpion to be killed by the zombies, the guy pops up and is like, hey, I'm not really a bad person anymore. And Vasquez is kind of put in the old, like, okay, do I kill this guy who did all this horrible stuff to me even though he seems to have changed? And, because Vasquez is one of the heroes of the show, they don't have him do it. Even when I was watching the show, I was just like, man, I would actually really like it if he actually did kill the guy, just because that's not what you would expect. But looks like we might be keeping a Scorpion around for a little while next season, so who knows. But yeah, it took me a little while to warm to Vasquez as a character, but at the end of the day, he proved to be a pretty good addition to the team, and well, hopefully he'll join back up. I love that bit at the end where he kind of puts that picture of his wife and daughter in the headband and kind of goes out there all Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Let's see. Yeah, nothing huge to say. Let's see, is there anything else that I wanted to talk about? Yeah, I did want to talk a little bit about the Zeros. Now, what was going on with them? I really like that bit where they say, like, hey, to the scientist, Dr. Kieran, I think his name was. And if you guys, you and Murphy can come up with this cure, hey, we've got the firepower, the connections, the resources to manufacture and distribute this. And you have to kind of stop and think about that. Like, okay, if there is a cure for this zombie virus, and wouldn't you really have to do just about anything if you could get it out there and start curing people, getting people immune to it? That way humanity could start to reclaim the world. But look at who's doing it. It's a drug cartel, and there's no way the Zeros aren't going to use this opportunity to sort of remold the world into their image. And Lorena is pretty darn crazy, and the Zeros seem to be rather fervent worshippers of Santa Muerte, or Muerta, or however you say that, which is like which is a for real thing down in Mexico. It's with the drug cartels and all that stuff. I mean, if you ever read anything about this, I mean, it's scary stuff. What's going on down there with that religion, shall we say? So yeah, that's that. Yeah, that was definitely interesting. But yeah, I mean, that would be kind of the question. Do you help these bad people who have this genuine chance at saving the human race? Or if, the world is going to be shaped in the image of these bad people, is it maybe better to not help them? Now, it doesn't exactly come down to that in the show, but I couldn't help but think about that while I was watching the episode. And, it is certainly an interesting philosophical point, if nothing else. Let me see. As I said, Gina Gershon, they brought her on to play Lorena. We also got a few other nice guest stars. Doug Jones popped up as the pilot of the UFO. Folks would probably best know him as he does a lot of motion capture stuff. He was the guy in the Abe Sapien suit in the Hellboy movies. He popped up as the mayor of this little town in the Nuka Break series, the live-action Fallout stuff that they did a while back on YouTube, which was really, really great stuff. They also, of course, had George R.R. Martin come in to play zombie George R.R. Martin, which was... oh man, that was seriously crazy stuff. I loved every minute of that. And oh yeah, we can't forget to talk about Citizen Z this episode. Now, what's kind of cool about him is last season he was very much, sort of the internet guy, the voice over the radio, the guy doing stuff with satellites. Here they take that away from him and put him out there having to do physical stuff, having to take down these group of zombies that have invaded his base. I'm really taking him out of his comfort zone. And Citizen Z manages to rise to the occasion, which is really cool. Also got to say, I did like the conmen guys they brought back. That was pretty funny stuff. But to go back to what I said about my favorite episode this season, the Day 1 one. I really like that because it really did a great job of seeing what the world was, how this sort of went down, and really did help shape up. It was like, wow, no wonder civilization fell so darn fast. Now, transforming into a zombie is an extremely quick procedure in the Z Nation universe, but still, just sort of seeing what everybody was doing when things went to hell. Everybody's just kind of going around living their life. Warren's doing her job at the National Guard. We get to see Doc back when he was still sober on the wagon and stuff. Very interesting to find out that he was actually a psychiatrist, of all things. You didn't really strike me as that sort of guy. And apparently he was a pretty good one. He really was good at his job. And of course you also get to see him immediately fall off the bandwagon once the zombie apocalypse starts. But hey, if the dead rising up to feast on the living isn't a good reason to start popping some questionable pills, I don't know what is. I liked 10K. He was just like chilling in the woods. He was fishing when things started. I don't know why that seems so funny to me, but it does. I think my favorite one though was Addie. She was like at a hockey game, And of course, this is also a great way to introduce how she got together with Mac. So that was pretty cool there. And I already talked about Vasquez and what happened with him when this all started. And it was certainly interesting to also see Citizen Z back before things went bad. He was this sort of Edward Snowden kind of guy. And yeah, I think I've been talking for 20 minutes, so I think this is a good place to wrap that up. So yeah, guys, season 2 of Z Nation, very solid stuff, really fun. And so until next time, you guys, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi and also on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. That's all one word there. So until next time, take care and have a good one.